excuse me, we're at 81%. Donald Trump's getting 83% of the vote. It's not a ton of votes, but he's getting 83% of the votes. Then you come over here. If you watch David Urban on our air, these are the counties he looks at all the time. Western Pennsylvania. This is Washington County, 72% of the vote in. Trump getting 60%. Let's compare it. Trump getting 61, he's 61%. So he's running about roughly what he did last time there. I guess you could argue whether or not he needs to improve on that or not. Beaver County, this is a key Trump country out here, 66%. See about a 10,000 vote margin. This is a medium-sized rural county, right? Some of them are a couple hundred votes. This one here, you're doing some business, again, in a state that's very close, you take 10,000 extra votes. Only 33% of the vote in here. Trump's at 66%. Almost more importantly, can she match Joe Biden? In counties you lose, can you at least be competitive? Can you at least pick up votes? She's at 33% in Beaver County. White, working class, blue-collar workers. Joe Biden at 40%. That's a big difference. That's a big margin. Again, we're not done with the count. We're not done with the count there. That's 33% of the vote. There's a long way to go. But if you're in the vice president's campaign, and you had Senator Fetterman out there for you, trying to help you. The vice president herself was out campaigning in the Pittsburgh area just the other day. You want to improve your standing there. You know Donald Trump's going to win those counties. You're just trying to cut into his margins in a close state. Bedrock of the Democrats will go west to east. Second largest county in Pennsylvania. There are 67 of them in all. Again, 74%, so more votes to count in Pittsburgh. Suburbs around it, Allegheny County, used to be steel country, much different, diversified economy now. 61% for the vice president at the moment. You come back here, 60% for the president. So a little under the president in some of these smaller rural counties, maybe a little over the president there. We'll see how this one comes out as we come back. And Jake, as I just bring your full state into focus, I just want to move over very quickly to look at Bucks. We're only at 34%, so a lot of blue votes still to be counted. Montgomery at 34%. 6%, still a lot of votes to be counted. Chester only at 11%, and Delaware only at 25%. So in the suburbs right around where Jake Tapper grew up, they're Democratic leaning and a lot of votes still to be counted. So it's a good number for Trump now, emphasis on now.
Yeah, I mean, the points you're making are so resonant because I remember when everybody was trying to figure out how did Hillary Clinton lose Pennsylvania in 2016. It wasn't that she ran so much under how Obama had done in 2012, although she did. It was really just how much better Trump did in those rural counties than Mitt Romney did. It was more the overperformance of Trump than the underperformance of Hillary Clinton. We'll see exactly what happens tonight, of course. David Chalian, what are you seeing in the exit polling about the Latino vote?
Yeah, we wanted to look across all three blue wall states that John was just walking us through, looking at this slice of the vote, the Latino vote, in the blue wall states. Now, they only make up 6% of the electorate in each of these states, but look at the difference in the margin. So Harris is getting in Pennsylvania 58% of the Latino vote, again, 6% of the electorate, to Donald Trump's 41%. That's a 17-point advantage. But 4 years ago, Biden beat Trump with Latinos in Pennsylvania by 42 points. So that is a huge movement for Trump in narrowing that gap. Similar story in Michigan. You see the Latino vote makes up a 6% of share. Sorry, not a similar story, reverse. Donald Trump is winning the Latino vote in Michigan with 60% of the vote. Harris, 35% of the vote. That's a 25% advantage for Trump among Latinos. That is a big change when Biden won Latinos in Michigan by 11 points 4 years ago. That's a 36-point swing in the margin. And if you look at Wisconsin, Harris is at 61% among Latinos, Trump at 38%. Again, 6% of the electorate. These margins matter. That is about where Biden and Trump were 4 years ago. So not a lot of change in the Latino vote in Wisconsin, but a lot of change in Michigan and Pennsylvania towards Trump, Jake.
Fascinating stuff, David Chalian. Thanks so much. And let's talk about this with my panel here. Dana Bash, your thoughts?
I mean, Pennsylvania and Michigan, in particular Pennsylvania, because there has been so much focus on the Latino vote in Pennsylvania, especially the Puerto Rican population there since the Madison Square Garden debacle. Even Donald Trump and the people around him, even though they're not saying it publicly, believe that what that comedian did was not helpful. And yet, according to this exit poll, it shows that let's stick with Trump, that Trump is doing way better than he did 4 years ago with that very population, the Latino population overall, not necessarily with Puerto Ricans.
Yeah, and let's face it, even before the garbage remark, Trump was making a very concerted effort. He thought, and obviously had reason to believe, that he could make some gains with Latinos, particularly with Latino men. I think there are economic issues that all people are facing. Also, I think cultural issues. There is a real social conservatism among Latinos. And, one of the ads that Trump and a lot of people sort of wondered about it, played, I think, more than any other, was the transgender ad. And you wonder if it did actually score with social conservatives and in winning votes for him and turning them away from Kamala Harris. Whatever the reason, you can see tremendous gains. I mean, in Michigan, it's extraordinary, just a flip.
We're also used to considering this by straight identity, where the identity that might be key here is rural. And I'd love to hear from John about where the kind of Hispanic heartland is. Where are these voters? And we're looking at the blue wall for a reason, where we're not necessarily talking about the border. You're not necessarily having this fight over your identity. You are the ideal Trump voter in that you are rural and you are more socially conservative.
Since Madison Square Garden, we've been talking, John King, if you're over there at the map, about two particular towns in Pennsylvania, Allentown and Reading. I believe it's Lehigh County and Berks County.
Right.
Do we have any sense of where the votes are there?
So here, this map you're looking at now just shows you there's not a very large Latino population in Pennsylvania. I'll put that into context in just a minute. But where you do see the deeper shading is where you have the higher population of Latino voters. So you see the concentration in Allentown, that's Lehigh County, and you see the concentration in the Reading area, that's Berks County. You're correct about that. I just want to come out, nationally, so you see the look. Like Pennsylvania has nowhere near the Latino population of a Florida or Texas or an Arizona, but in a battleground state, a small population can make the difference, right? So let's come off that and come back into Pennsylvania 2024. Where were they? This is the interesting part. The exit polls are taken of people as they leave the polls, right? We're still counting votes. So some of this may not have kicked in yet in the math, if you will. People say that when they leave the polls. We don't know what precincts or Allentown are in. I don't anyway out here right now. Some of our people can jump at me if they do, if they have that information. But Lehigh County, the 10th largest of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania. It's important. It's a blue-collar county. So 53 to 45 right now, only 43% of the vote. So let's watch and see when we get higher up if this percentage changes. But just come out of this and look at 2020, right? Joe Biden, she's about matching Joe Biden. Trump's at 46. I'm going to focus on him. So you come here, he's at 45. And then Berks County here, I come down to, I spent a lot of time in Berks County in this campaign, and it's gone back to being Republican. It was blue earlier, and we're at 92%. So maybe a little bit there, Jake. We'll study a little bit more closely as we go through this.
All right, we have some projections right now. CNN can project that Iowa will go to Donald Trump as expected. Iowa and its 6 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump, CNN can project. CNN can also project that Kansas will go to Donald Trump. Kansas and its 6 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. So that's 12 additional electoral votes for Donald Trump, who now has 207 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 91 electoral votes. There are 270 electoral votes needed to win. Donald Trump holding a sizable lead in the electoral vote as of now, but we are expecting more votes to drop in Democratic strongholds in key battleground states. We're also counting down to the next round of poll closings at 11 p.m. Eastern, when Democrats are expecting to claim a gold mine of electoral votes out west in California. That's all ahead. As we prepare for the next round of poll closings in about 15 minutes, let's take a look at the fight for electoral votes right now. As of right now, Donald Trump has 207 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 91 electoral votes. There are 270 needed to win. The results, of course, are still coming in, and we have a key race alert right now. In Arizona, Donald Trump is in the lead with 49.6% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 49.5% of the vote. Donald Trump with a narrow 1,046 vote lead with 51% of the estimated vote in from battleground Arizona. In battleground Wisconsin, Donald Trump is in the lead there with 49.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 49.1% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 4,004 up, that just increased. So to a 6,556 lead ahead of Kamala Harris with an estimated 55% of the vote in from Wisconsin. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump maintaining his lead, 50.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48.1% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 121,000 plus vote lead. That's with 61% of the estimated vote in from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In Georgia, Donald Trump maintaining his lead with 51.2% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 153,980 vote lead with an estimated 86% of the vote in. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris in the lead. She has 52.5% of the vote. Donald Trump with 45.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a more than 102,000 vote lead. That's with 27% of the estimated vote in from battleground Michigan. In North Carolina, Donald Trump maintaining his lead. He has 50.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 47.9% of the vote. Donald Trump is 134,000 plus votes ahead with 84% of the estimated vote in the Tar Heel state. In Virginia, Kamala Harris still in the lead, 49.9% of the vote. Donald Trump has 48.3% of the vote. Kamala Harris is maintaining a 55,000 plus vote lead with 3/4 of the vote in there. In Virginia, 75% of the estimated vote. And then in New Mexico, Kamala Harris with 53.2% of the vote in the lead there. Donald Trump has 44.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48,589 more votes than Donald Trump right now with an estimated 65% of the vote. Still about a third of the vote left to count in New Mexico. And Boris Sanchez has a new projection for us in the fight for control of the U.S. Senate. Boris?
Yeah, Jake, a handful of important projections to bring you, beginning with history being made in the state of Maryland. There, the executive of Prince George's County, Democrat Angela Alsobrooks, will defeat former two-term Republican Governor Larry Hogan. She becomes the first African-American person ever elected to the Senate from the state of Maryland. Another projection to bring you, this one from the state of Delaware. Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester defeats Eric Hansen, a former Walmart executive, the Democrat here becoming the first woman and the first African-American person ever elected to the Senate from Delaware. A projection to bring you in the Northeast, this time in New York. There, incumbent Democratic Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, a former presidential candidate, she will win her third full term in office as she defeats former NYPD detective Mike Sapricone. Let's get you some updates on the Republican side, beginning with the Lone Star State of Texas. Going into the night, Democrats had optimism about potentially flipping this seat from red to blue instead. Republican incumbent Ted Cruz wins re-election, cruising to his third term against Democrat Colin Allred, a congressman from the Dallas area, a former Tennessee Titans middle linebacker. Cruz here winning by a substantial margin in the Lone Star State. An update now from Mississippi. There, incumbent Republican Roger Wicker wins his third full term, defeating civil rights attorney Ty Pickens. Re-election for Wicker in Mississippi. An update now from one of the reddest states in the country, Wyoming. There, incumbent Republican Senator John Barrasso wins his fourth term as he defeats Scott Morrow, a union official who touts his black belt in Taekwondo on his campaign website. Barrasso re-elected in Wyoming. Some more projections to bring you, beginning in Missouri. There, incumbent Republican Senator Josh Hawley, perhaps best known for being the first senator to object to certifying the 2020 election results in favor of Joe Biden, he defeats Democrat Lucas Kunz to win re-election in Missouri. Meantime, in Nebraska, this special election, Pete Ricketts, a former governor there, he defeats Preston Love Jr., a former campaign manager for Jesse Jackson's presidential campaign in 1984. This is to serve out the term left by retired Republican Senator Ben Sasse. An update from North Dakota now. There, incumbent Republican Senator Kevin Cramer wins his second term, defeating engineering professor Katrina Christensen. Cramer reelected in North Dakota. So what do all these results mean for the magic number that Republicans need to take control of the U.S. Senate. Remember, they started out the night needing 2 Democratic seats to flip the chamber. Right now, that number with a pickup in West Virginia is 1. And currently, as of this moment, Republicans are leading in 4 races where Democrats hold seats. But hold on, because that needs some context. 2 of these states are fairly early. One of them is Montana, and that race is expected to be competitive, but the other one is Minnesota, in which we're not really expecting that close of a race tonight. And there's also potentially a twist. I'll explain that in just a moment as we take a look at some key race alerts. These are live results coming into CNN right now. In Pennsylvania, this race has been back and forth all night. Look at what separates the former CEO of a hedge fund, Dave McCormick, from incumbent Democratic Senator Bob Casey. 0.1 percentage points, 44,000 vote lead for McCormick, with 61% of the vote in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Meantime, the most expensive Senate race in the country, in history. Nearly $500 million spent on this race, and currently, Colombian-born businessman Bernie Moreno leads incumbent Democrat Sherrod Brown with 261,000 votes, 84% of the vote in Ohio, where now Donald Trump has won the book, I state, 3 times in a row. And this is the twist I was talking about before. No one expected this Senate race in Nebraska would be this close. You have Dan Osborne, an independent, who has not said which party he would caucus with. In fact, saying that he would caucus with neither party. Right now, he holds a 10,000, almost 11,000 vote lead over incumbent Republican Deb Fischer, 48% of the vote in there. If he wins, it could change the math a little bit for what Republicans need to take control of the Senate. Let's step back and give you a look at the balance of power. The raw numbers: Democrats hold 35 seats, Republicans 48, again with that 1 pickup of West Virginia. But there are 17 seats still up for grabs. You need 51 for control of the chamber, Jake.
That Nebraska race is fascinating. The presidential race is moving west right now, and we are counting down to 11 p.m. Eastern. That's when a total of 78 electoral votes are on the line. Most of them are in California. Polling places are about to close there, and also in Idaho and Oregon and Washington State. Kamala Harris is counting on Blue California to push her closer to the 270 electoral votes needed to win the White House. Let's go back to Abby Phillip at Harris campaign headquarters. Abby, you and Jeff have been talking to people inside the Harris campaign. What are they telling you?
Yeah, Jake, let me just give you a gut check here about what we are hearing here as we've been sitting here reporting from the Harris headquarters. And I think the operative word right now is silence. There's not a lot being said because the Harris team appears to be searching for bright spots in the map as these results very, very slowly come in.
Searching for bright spots and also very aware of the warning signs throughout the electorate in Virginia, in Iowa, in other places. I am told that Milwaukee and Detroit and Philadelphia, that is what the Harris campaign tonight is holding out hope for, more votes to come in. They have always said the blue wall was the most straightforward path. Now it may be the best, not only at all, because Georgia is also something that is developing tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I still hear from Harris aides that they feel good about Georgia, but it is very, very close. The blue wall still remains the best option for her in this moment. So that's just, Jake, where things stand right now. Usually, and I know you know this, as the night goes on, the campaign is trying to spin these numbers as they come out. Jeff and I have been sitting here reporting for hours. There's been a slowdown in that spin because they really are digging into these numbers as they are coming in and trying to understand what's left out there for them, especially in these big urban centers. Jake?
Yeah, this is my 7th presidential election. I would observe that when campaigns go silent, that's generally not a positive sign. Caitlin Collins, you're in West Palm Beach with the Trump team. What are they saying?
Yeah, Jake, much livelier here. As you can hear, Donald Trump's favorite song, YMCA, is playing behind me. And certainly the audience here has gotten a lot livelier in just the last 45 minutes or so, Jake. We've been here for several hours, and that matches the feeling back at Mar-a-Lago, where we are hearing from Trump campaign sources that they are feeling a lot more optimistic about these numbers, boosted by Virginia, but also by Iowa, a number that proved wrong, that poll that came out on Saturday and sent shockwaves through the Trump campaign. And Kristen Holmes, I know you've been talking to sources. What are you hearing about what they're thinking right now watching this come in?
They're starting to feel even more optimistic than they were before. before, a lot of them are looking at those exit poll numbers and they're seeing a lot of movement. Some of it we've talked about on our air, but the big numbers there, Latino voters. That is something that they really worked at this cycle. They believe that in 2016, Donald Trump won the election on the back of working class voters. They believe he could win the election this time around on the back of Latino voters, particularly Latino men. Now, one thing to watch, Arizona and Nevada. What do those numbers look like? He specifically, in Nevada, reached out to Latino voters. They were trying to launch their coalition for Hispanic voters in Nevada. They believe that this could actually carry him in that state, which obviously he did not win in 2020. He didn't win it in 2016, but they do believe that if he wins it in this cycle, it is because of Latino voters.
Yeah, they feel very good about him improving his standing with those voters from where he was, not only 2016, but 2020, Kristen Holmes. And Jake, I should note, a sign, as you're always just kind of looking for moments and to read the tea leaves, see what they mean. We're told that partygoers who were at Mar-a-Lago, where Donald Trump still is right now, are now filtering in here to the party at the convention center. Of course, it remains to be seen if and when Donald Trump himself shows up here, Jake.
All right, Caitlin and Kristen, thanks so much. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall. John, what can you tell us about Georgia right now?
So let's look at Battleground Georgia. First, let's just look at the entire map and look at it out. There's a lot of red on that map. A lot of red on that map, and that tells you right now, with a lot of votes to be counted, this map looks a lot more like 2016 than it does like 2020. And you can know at home what happened in those two elections. But we're not done with the count, so let's look in Georgia. Right now, the former president leading in Georgia by 136,000 votes and change at 51% to 48%, 89% in. So when you get this close to the finish line, you're saying, what's left, and is it enough? Is it enough to overcome 136,000 votes? So let's start with that, and let's look at where our live outstanding votes are. The bigger the circle, the more votes still to be counted. The color of the circle, how the votes coming in that area right now. So you do see a lot of big circles in Atlanta and the suburbs, down here in Savannah and the suburban areas around that, Columbus, Georgia down here. You see some pockets of Democratic votes that are still out. They're large pockets. That's a lot of votes. And if they come in big numbers, we'll see how significantly the vice president narrows that gap. You also see a lot of these little blue dots. They're not done in the rural counties in Georgia, and that matters too. Because yes, if you get a big basket of votes, in Cobb County is at 95% though, so you're not going to get a ton there. Fulton County is at 90%. It's the largest population center, so 10% can be a lot of votes because of the population center. This is the one we're waiting the most on, Gwinnett County, but they're up to 72% now. And then we'll come down here and look at DeKalb County. They're at 89% now. So we have more votes to come from in this circle of Atlanta and the suburbs around it that are blue, but we also have more votes to come from in some of these counties out here. That one's at 94, that one's at 95, that one's at 98, that one's at 92. So you got a lot of the vote in these places. So Donald Trump still has some votes to pick up in the rural areas. The question is, how big are the vice president's advantages in the Democratic areas where votes are still out? When you're down by 136,000 votes with 89% reporting, when those votes come in, not only in Atlanta suburbs, I just want to check down here in Chatham County, they're only at 36%. So again, if you're in the Harris campaign, Abby and Jeff are exactly right. They are scrubbing the books now. They're looking at their data projections. They are calling people in the states. They are trying to find out what happened here. How many people turned out? We're getting 60% of the vote at 36% counting. How many more to get? And are they all ours, or are we splitting these votes? It gets frantic in campaign headquarters at this point of the night when you're trying to figure out, is the math possible? I would say as you pull it out, yes, the math is possible, but you'd rather be Donald Trump right now in Georgia than the Vice President of the United States. So let's look at North Carolina, another of the Sun Belt states, 145,000 votes ahead. That's almost twice what Donald Trump won North Carolina by 4 years ago. 85% of the vote in, same test. What's the outstanding vote? Again, smaller circle now in Mecklenburg. I'll go there in just a second to see. That was a little bit bigger earlier in the night. That's the largest county. Mecklenburg County is Charlotte and the suburbs around it. Out here, in the Raleigh-Durham area, still a lot of votes to be had. Fayetteville area, a lot of votes to be counted. But again, look at those little tiny dots, right? Not a lot out there, but all those little rural counties add up for Donald Trump. So let's just come out and check where we were talking about. Right here, Cumberland County, that's Fayetteville. Only 21%. So this is where, if you're the Harris campaign, when I was in those Georgia counties, they were at 75%, 80%, somewhere in that ballpark. That gets you nervous. That gets you jittery. Here, you're still jittery because you're losing, but you know there are a lot more votes out there. This is the second largest county in the state, Wake County. They're up to 82%. So you're starting to get a little nervous there. You're looking for places, that's 94%. You're looking for places that are your color, that's 95%, that are in the 60s, in the 70s, or the 30s, right? This county is not as much population, but at least there you have some hope. Let's look at Mecklenburg. They're at 90%. Now, again, this is where the biggest numbers come in, so that 10% can matter, but it's the only big county you have left, and the other guy has a 145,000 vote lead in a state he has won twice. So then we come up here, and that's what made Donald Trump president in 2016. He flipped the blue wall states that had voted. They have voted together since 1992. They have voted blue in every one of those elections with the exception of 2016. Right now, as we get closer into late night here, Donald Trump is leading in Pennsylvania by 116,000 votes, only 67%, so a ways to go there, a ways to go. The Senate race is also tight. Guess what? There we are in Pennsylvania. Then you come over here, he's leading in Wisconsin. This is a state, 2 elections in a row has been decided by ballpark 20,000 votes. Trump's lead is 26,000 votes right there. Again, battleground Wisconsin, very close. Vice President's team scratching to try to find votes. And Michigan, she's leading in Michigan, only 30% of the vote there coming in. So to me, as I look at this map, the blue wall states become paramount, Jake.
Indeed. Voting is about to end in 4 states out west. That includes the biggest prize of all, California, which has 54 of the 78 electoral votes at stake this hour. And we have a projection for you now. CNN can project that Kamala Harris will win the state of California with those 54 electoral votes. Not unexpected. Harris will win California. CNN is also projecting that Donald Trump will win the state of Idaho with its 4 electoral votes. So what does that mean for the electoral? Too early to call. We have Washington State with 12 electoral votes and Oregon with 8 electoral votes. Too early to call. Let's go to the electoral map right now. Donald Trump with 211 electoral votes at this hour. Kamala Harris cracks 100, now has 145 electoral votes. 270 electoral votes are needed to win. Donald Trump is 59 electoral votes away from that. Let's look at these battleground states now. Arizona, Donald Trump in the lead there, 49.6%. Kamala Harris right behind him with 49.5%. Donald Trump has a 2,356 vote lead with 51% of the estimated vote in from Arizona. Wisconsin, Donald Trump in the lead there too, 49.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris is 48.4%. Donald Trump has a 28,576 vote lead with an estimated 59% of the estimated vote in from the Badger State. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump maintaining his lead. He's at 50.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 48.2% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 119,411 vote lead with 68% of the estimated vote in from Pennsylvania. In Georgia, Donald Trump still in the lead there, 51% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 48.2% of the vote. Donald Trump with a 136,328 vote lead. That is with 88% of the estimated vote in from the state of Georgia. In North Carolina, another battleground where Donald Trump leads, 50.8% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 47.8% of the vote. Donald Trump has a 145,388 vote lead over Kamala Harris right now with an estimated 85% of the vote in from the Tar Heel state. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris in the lead. She has 51.3% of the vote. Donald Trump has 46.9%. Kamala Harris is 74,838 votes ahead of Donald Trump, but that's less than a third of the vote counted there. 30% of the estimated vote in from the state of Michigan. In the Commonwealth of Virginia, Kamala Harris in the lead there still, but narrowly so, 50.1% of the vote. Donald Trump has 48% of the vote. Kamala Harris with a 73,375 vote lead. That is with 78% of the estimated vote in from the Commonwealth of Virginia. In New Mexico, Harris leads there too, 52.6% of the vote. Donald Trump with 45.5% of the vote. That is with an estimated 69% of the vote in. Harris with a roughly 43,000 vote lead. Let's go now to Abby Phillip, who is at Harris campaign headquarters in Washington, D.C. at the campus of Howard University. Abby, what are you hearing from the Harris campaign, if anything?
Yeah, Jake, we actually just got a pretty significant update from the Harris campaign campaign manager, Jen O'Malley Dillon, who sent out a memo to her staff tonight laying out what they see ahead in the coming days and hours, and my colleague Jeff Zeleny is here with me. The memo essentially says, Jake, that the returns are coming in slowly. They still see their path, but that path is largely going to be through the blue wall, as Jeff and I were just discussing. The key point that Jen O'Malley Dillon is making is that this is a close race. This is the close race that they have been expecting. She says to her staff, we are built for this. Let's finish the night out. We will see you tomorrow. They are not expecting this to be wrapped up tonight.
They are not, because the margins are so small. And just reading from that memo, should we have known all along our clearest path to 270 was through the blue wall states. And again, they point out the cities we were talking about, Milwaukee, Detroit, and of course, Philadelphia. Abby, a central question hanging over all of this, and indeed the crowd here waiting behind us, is Vice President Harris going to address the crowd? That is a possibility. We will see in the coming days as we hear some helicopters overhead here. We will see. But the bottom line is they know this is a close race. This is going to be not resolved tonight in their eyes.
Yeah, Jeff, this is a critical moment, I think, for the Harris campaign to show where they get to 270. And Jake, it looks like they are not foreclosing really on anything in the map right now that is not called. They're still waiting for the polls to close in parts of the Sun Belt, for those results to come trickling in. But again, it's the blue wall again. It is it's Pennsylvania, it is Wisconsin, and it is Michigan, where the best chances are for Harris to get to that 270 that she needs to become president of the United States.
All right, Abby Phillip and Jeff Zeleny, thanks so much. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall. John, explain the theory of the case for the Harris campaign right now, if you would.
Right, and you heard Jeff and Abby emphasizing even the campaign, saying essentially they don't rule out any other possibilities, but we're really banking on the blue wall. Well, at the moment as we speak, 2 of the 3 blue wall states, that's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, 2 of the 3 are red. We're not done, but 2 of the 3 are red. Why is that significant? Well, let's look at the Sun Belt states. And again, Harris campaign is not ruling this out, but you show this here. Donald Trump, 142,000 votes ahead in North Carolina. I can show you the live outstanding votes. And when I show you the live outstanding votes, you will see some pretty big circles in the blue areas, large metropolitan areas and suburban areas where the Democrats do quite well. I just want to say, at 85% reporting statewide and 142,000 vote lead, is it mathematically possible? Are enough votes out there? Yes. When you get to this point in an election in a state Donald Trump won twice, you start to think, okay, this looks like it did in 2016 and in 2020. It looks more like 2016 than it did in 2020, to be honest with you. But you look at it, and if you're in the Harris campaign, you're calling all these counties, and you're trying to figure out, how many votes are out and what percentage are we getting. But if you're looking at the North Carolina map, I'd rather be Donald Trump than the Vice President of the United States right now. So then you bring up the Georgia map, and again, this one, I'll say this again, I'm a broken record. 2024 is not 2020. There's not as many mail-in ballots. We won't have as many large percentages of Democratic votes coming in the days after. But Donald Trump was ahead by more than 200,000 votes at this point 4 years ago. So let's just be cautious for the sake of being cautious. And yet, at the same time, I just said that, I want to tell you he's 136,000 votes ahead in a state that was decided by 11,000 votes last cycle. 88% of the vote is in. So where is the live outstanding vote? Live outstanding vote. This is where in the Harris campaign, you're just hoping that overnight these Democratic areas report not just their votes, but a lot of votes. You're hoping turnout exceeds your expectations. So you see down here in the Savannah area, this is where the races are won or lost for Democrats, Atlanta and the suburbs around it. So let's come out of that map. And again, here's the key point. Fulton County, 90% of the vote is in. Yes, she's getting 72% of the vote. Just want to check, compare that. It's a little below where President Biden was, but it's close. But remember, he won the state by 11,000 votes, so she can't really afford to be below him anywhere, or not by much anyway. You move over to Cobb County, 91% in. This is a big suburban county, right? So 91%, you have some change to make up there. She's at 57% if you round that up. The President of the United States was at 56, so she's running equal, maybe a little bit ahead there. So let's come over to DeKalb County here. Let's come up to 2024 and see what's left. 11% left, again, large, very Democratic area. You see the 81% there, just to the east of Atlanta. Let's just check 2020, Biden getting 83. 81, 83, you might think at home that's not that big of a difference. In a race that's very close, yes, it can be a big difference. So we have to watch at the moment. Let's do it this way, come back to 2024, and let's just pop in this and see where's Harris underperforming. Where is Harris underperforming Joe Biden? In a state Joe Biden won by 11,000 votes, you can't really underperform. And she's underperforming in 28 of the 159 counties, right? So we have more votes to be counted. We're not done yet. This is not a final glimpse. But you see out in these rural areas, this is part of the secret of Joe Biden's win in 2020. He got his butt kicked by Donald Trump in these small rural counties, but he did better than Hillary Clinton. Blue-collar workers, rural workers, people who work with their hands, Joe Biden did just a little bit better. And in a state decided by 11,000 votes, that can matter. So again, you asked me about the map. We're not done. We're going to count. The Harris campaign will update us. They enter their counties. We have people on the ground asking the people, our vote desk with Pam Brown, what votes are still outstanding. But if you look at this map right now, I want to switch. Well, let's just check real quickly where we are in Wisconsin, 61%. I want to check Milwaukee. This is where, okay, only a 53% in Milwaukee. Black turnout in Milwaukee better be huge in the uncounted vote for the vice president to catch up. I talked to a Democrat out there earlier who said it was good. They didn't say it was great. They said it was good. And I asked if it was great, and they said it was good. So we'll see how that plays out. Dane County, 74%. We're at 91%. Again, not to be a broken record, 75%. A percentage point can matter, underperforming by just a little bit. And so she's losing in Wisconsin. Got a ways to go there. She's holding on in Michigan at the moment. We're still only at 32%. So we got a long way to go in battleground Michigan. We'll come back out here. And this one is the biggest. I'm going to show you why in just a second. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we've been saying it for weeks. 19 electoral votes, the largest of the battleground states out there. 72% in, 178,000 vote lead. That's a healthy lead. Now again, let's look. Let's look. There's a lot of votes. This is what happened. Remember 2020. Donald Trump was ahead in Pennsylvania. This was what brought Joe Biden back. They counted the votes, mainly in Philadelphia, but also in the suburbs around it. That was 2020. There were a lot more early mail-in votes then to be counted than there are now, but we shall see as we come out. And Jake, before you jump in, and please ask me anything you want, one little quirky thing. Trump's leading in Northampton. Harris is leading in Erie. Those are the two swing counties that have been. So just watching that. But here's what I want to say right now. I just want to bring this up to show the stakes for the Harris campaign right now as the count in North Carolina gets higher and in Georgia gets higher. The importance if Donald Trump, this is a hypothetical, but if Donald Trump holds these two, and he won that one both times, 2016 and 2020. He won this in 2016. He lost it by 11,000 votes in 2020. So not at all inconceivable in history and when you look at the numbers tonight. Excuse me. If that happens, Harris cannot lose that. Why can she not lose that? Because 251 plus 19 makes Donald Trump president of the United States. So the rest of them wouldn't matter. I don't mean your votes don't matter in those other states. But in terms of the path to 270, if he holds those leads he has right now in those two states, which are healthy leads, she cannot afford to lose that. Just cannot. And at the moment, as we switch maps, please jump in if you want. I'm just going to switch back to the national map so we can watch the count.
Okay. I want to stick on Pennsylvania and bring in Kate Baldwin, who is at a vote counting center in the best city in the world, Philadelphia. Kate, what are you learning?
It's the only area where you're allowed to be biased. We've just learned, as John was focusing in on the outstanding mail-in ballots. That is something that we have all been waiting for. I have just learned from a source close to the counting process that the next batch, the second batch of mail ballots that will be loaded and posted, scheduled to at 11:55 p.m., that will be tens of thousands of ballots. They're still working through it, so narrowing that number down any further, not possible at this time. We'll continue working with it, but it will be tens of thousands of mail ballots that will be posted at 11:55, just before midnight, adding to which was the first batch, which ended up being 115,000 mail ballots, which is just narrowing the universe of what's outstanding, getting us closer and closer to, as John has been talking about, once you get that 50% of the 50% of the vote in, then you can really start seeing where things are headed. And what we're seeing in Philadelphia, they're not yet at 50%. They're getting closer to it. And these mail-in ballots, when they post at 11:55, will get him quite a bit more there.
All right, Kate,
Jake.
thanks so much. Let's go to the other side of the Commonwealth. Brian Todd's at a vote counting center outside Pittsburgh. Brian, what's the status of the vote there?
Jake, the bottom line is we're heading to the finish line very quickly here in Allegheny County. I'm with David Voy, the election divisions manager of the county. David, it's going to be counted all pretty soon. By midnight, about how much of the vote do you think will be in?
So I believe we're roughly 98% now that have reported. I believe by midnight, we're at 89% reported. I believe by midnight we should be around 98.
And to clarify, just about all the mail-ins have been reported by now.
All the mail-ins that we have will be counted and tabulated this evening. The only thing that it will not be are any military or overseas ballots, which they have an extra week to return their ballots, and they'll be scanned in later.
And an illustration is right behind us of the votes coming in. Explain to our viewers what these are and where they're going to be put.
So these yellow bags are the physical paper ballots that voters have voted. They are put in these bags and sealed and locked. The seal numbers are traced for chain of custody, and they will be locked up and kept here.
Just how smoothly has it gone? Because we've heard that it's gone incredibly smoothly here in Allegheny.
So this crew that works here on election day, they've gotten really good at this since 2020. I mean, we posted our first batch of approximately 186,000 mail-in ballots by 8:02. And you know, by law in PA, we're not allowed to post any results before 8 o'clock.
Is there anything we can look to be outstanding after midnight tonight?
Just the provisional ballots, which we are sworn in on Friday to start our return board. That is our recount. That's when we'll start researching those provisionals, see how many we have, and start counting those. And again, like I said, the overseas and military ballots, this will count and get into the system next week.
Any sense of how many of those there are?
Less than 4,000 total.
David, thank you very much. Great update. All right, guys, back to you. Allegheny County, close to the finish line here.
All right, Brian, thanks so much. Let's get more on the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with Pamela Brown, who's at the voting desk. Pamela, take us through what is left to be counted, what's outstanding.
Well, it's a big question what's going on in the collar counties around Philadelphia. These are the blue-leaning collar counties that the Harris campaign has been trying to drive up turnout. That's Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery counties where results have been slowly coming in. So I just spoke to an official in Chester County. An official there tells me that they just released a large batch of mail-in ballots. So that release was 60,673. And by 1 a.m., I'm told they'll see more results from the precincts of today's in-person votes. You have to remember they have to take the memory card, drive it in. It's a large county. Now, total ballots counted so far, like this is the universe, right, is 151,950. And then I should note the ballots cast in person today there in this key collar county is 91,277 per this official. Let's go over to Bucks County. This is another critical collar county, as John King has been talking about all night. I'm told results will trickle in as these data cards are being driven from the polling places. An official I was just in touch with, texting with there in Bucks, says so far over 90,000 mail-in ballots are accounted for in the results out of a possible total of 151,000. And I also want to note this, that the state will be required to report the outstanding early votes by midnight. So we should get a clearer picture soon there in this critical battleground Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Back to you.
All right, fascinating. And she was just talking about Bucks County. Walk us through Bucks County. This is where Harris had a couple big events there, including that one with Liz Cheney, really making a play for Republican women, especially in Bucks County.
And for Haley voters. Nikki Haley got 155,000 votes in the Pennsylvania primary long after she was out of the race, so that was one piece of the competition. Two things to say about this. Number one, it's only half the vote. So if you just think we have about 200,000 more votes, right? This is 51%. It's 103 to 102. So you got roughly 200,000 votes still to come in. Bucks County is the most competitive of the collar counties. If she's at 50%, the vice president, if you round up, again, President Biden was at 52 if you round him up. You say that's not a huge difference, but Jake, you know the Commonwealth very well. In the competitive swing counties, a half a point or a point can matter, and right now that number's not good for the vice president.
Indeed. And CNN can bring you a projection now. Folks at home, CNN projects that the state of Oregon will go to Kamala Harris. As expected, Oregon, with its 8 electoral votes, will go to the Democrat Kamala Harris. Let's take a look at the electoral map. Right now, Donald Trump has 211 electoral votes. Kamala Harris has 153 electoral votes. 270 are needed to win. Let's take a look at the key races now. Arizona, Donald Trump in the lead there, 49.6% of the vote. Kamala Harris right behind him with 49.5% of the vote. Donald Trump with a roughly 3,000 vote lead. That's with 51% of the estimated vote in. from the state of Arizona. In battleground Wisconsin, Donald Trump maintaining his lead, 50.4% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48% of the vote. Donald Trump with a more than 50,000 vote lead right now with 63% of the estimated vote in from the Badger State. In the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Donald Trump maintaining his lead, 51% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 47.9% of the vote. Donald Trump with more than 165,000 more votes than Kamala Harris, with more than 3/4, 76% of the estimated vote in from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In battleground Georgia, Donald Trump in the lead, 50.9% of the vote. Kamala Harris has 48.3% of the vote. Donald Trump has a more than 131,000 vote lead over Kamala Harris. That's with 90% of the estimated vote in. So they got 10% to go there in Georgia, but Donald Trump in the lead. In North Carolina, another battleground, Donald Trump still in the lead there with 50.7% of the vote. Kamala Harris with 47.9% of the vote. Donald Trump has a more than 138,000 vote lead over Kamala Harris with an estimated 87% of the vote in. In battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris is in the lead, 50.2% of the vote. Donald Trump has 48% of the vote. Harris has a more than 40,000 vote lead over Donald Trump with 1/3, 33% of the vote in there. John King?
So, Jake, just going through some of these counties in Pennsylvania, again, Joe Biden won the state. Let's go back and show you it. 81,000 votes, right? His birth state. He's from Delaware now, but he was born in Pennsylvania. That was one of the things that helped him, is because he was, as he liked to call himself, the scrappy kid from Scranton. So where are we now in 2024? I was just looking at here. This is Lackawanna County. This is where Joe Biden was born, Scranton, Pennsylvania. You say, well, the vice president's winning it with 51%, but Donald Trump's at 48, right? So again, in a close battleground state, margins within some of these counties can matter. She's at 51. Joe Biden, 4 years ago, was at 54. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. You look at the margin there, you say, oh, that's only 9,000 votes, right? You know, but if you're trying now, you're trying to make up this lead, right? That's 3,000 votes, a little less than that, a little more than that, maybe 3,000 votes. The reason it matters is you're trying to make up 173,000 votes, right? So when you're losing ground in each of these counties, it hurts. And so let's just come over here. This is Luzerne County. This is Trump country, Pennsylvania. Harris getting 42%, 43 if you want to round that up. Trump at 57. Again, 43 for the vice president, 42. So there she's competing, not so bad. There. So you're just looking for the pieces as you come through. Carbon County, 65 for Trump. 4 years ago, 72% for Trump now. That's white workers, blue-collar workers, high school educated workers. You want to check back in here. Lehigh County, vice president getting 52%. There's a little bit out here. Again, you're looking for population centers now. This is the 10th largest of the 67 counties. If you're the Harris campaign, you're looking at population centers trying to say what's left in the places where there are a lot of people, modest amount of people in Lehigh Valley, but you see it right there. At 52, just want to come back. Around states, and in a place that matter, blue-collar Pennsylvania, you don't see it right now. Some votes still to be counted. Maybe she makes it up. But so then the other point is, if you're losing places, can you make it up, right? If you're losing in one piece of the state, can you make it up somewhere else? Look at Delaware County. She's getting 60% of the vote, right? So it's only 70% counted. She's getting 60. Biden got 63, even in Delaware County, which is strongly Democratic. That was my last stop on the all over the map tour there. Again, there's time. Right, there's 70% of the vote to come, but look at this, right? If you've got 70%, the most you're going to make up, if the percentages stay the same, you're going to make up somewhere in the ballpark of 15 or 20,000 votes, right? That's great. You're making up 15, 20,000 votes. His lead is 178,000 votes. So you're looking for places where you can make up a ton, which is why, to circle back to your hometown, what Kate Baldwin just told us is absolutely essential. It was Saturday morning in 2020 when that last installment from Philadelphia came in. The next installment will not be the last installment from Philadelphia, but she said tens and tens of thousands of votes, right? The Vice President of the United States is getting 77% of the vote right now in Philadelphia. They're approaching 70% reporting, right? You come back in time, the President of the United States was getting over 81% in Philadelphia. Again, this is your biggest basket of votes. The Democratic coalition, this is the foundation. There's no house for Democrats without the foundation of Philadelphia. At the moment, she is underperforming the President of the United States, and she has to make up 178,000 votes. The math there is pretty clear. It's not mission impossible, but the more you get deeper into the count, the question is, after this next big batch of votes from Philadelphia, does it become mission improbable? I think is what you're looking for as we wait for more votes in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And again, Trump wins Pennsylvania, the map gets near impossible. Not impossible, but near impossible.
There have been stories written a week or two ago about Democrats in Philadelphia sounding the alarm and basically using the press to send the message to the Harris campaign that they didn't think that the Harris campaign was listening to Philadelphia Democrats enough about the need to improve the margins. And just, Donald Trump lost Pennsylvania in 2020, but he improved his vote count in Philly from 2016 to 2020. And it looks like he's doing that again tonight, even while improving his margins in the collar counties as opposed to what happened 4 years ago.
Well, we don't have the raw numbers yet, obviously, because we're at 70%, but he's at 22 if you round that up, 117,000 votes. Let's just go back and look. He's certainly on track to. If he keeps the percentage he's at now, right? He's at 18% there, and he had 132,000 votes. He's at 117,000 votes, and we still got 30% of commit. So it sure looks like he's overperforming 2020. We're not done yet, but it sure looks like that. And then so the analysis afterwards will be, who is it? Is it black voters in Philadelphia? There are some suburban areas outside of Philadelphia there. There are some affluent white voters there as well. But that will be the analysis afterwards. The thing that strikes me is we're going through these states. The thing you heard in the last week from the Harris people is that we're on the ground. Our labor allies are on the ground. Our progressive groups are on the ground. Our LGBTQ groups are on the ground. We're knocking on doors, and we don't see the Trump people anywhere. Right? Trump did sort of contract out his get out the vote. I was in 7 or 8 of these battleground states in the last couple of weeks. We didn't see many Trump people out there at all, just doing phone banks. But what happened in 2016 is Trump's support was organic. It was organic. And so, the Trump campaign says, texts and phone calls work to turn out voters. Democrats think it's knocking on the doors. If this map holds up, that's going to be a big conversation about motivating and turning out voters in this technology age. What works best? What kind of contact works best? Or, the vice president's campaign, well, they say she only had 110 days. She didn't have enough time to introduce herself. Or, that part, we're not done yet. But that's what's going to happen, if that happens, is who the finger pointing in the Democratic Party. We're not there yet, but as you watch this map fill in, another thing that is distinctive at the moment, we're not done yet. In 2 presidential elections, Donald Trump has lost the popular vote both times. At the moment, he's 5.1 million votes ahead. We're just starting the count in our most populous state. So there's a long way to go, and that could change. But that would be a trophy if Donald Trump wins this election. That would be a trophy he would very much like to claim after losing the popular vote in 2 elections in a row.
And you also know there are people in the senior echelons of the Trump campaign who say that they still do direct mail because there's said seniors, you can't reach seniors through texting and emails, that the way to reach them is with direct mail, which a lot of people in politics today laugh off, but guess who votes more than young people? Seniors. Sarah Seidner, let's go to Wisconsin if you can, because I want to bring in Sarah Seidner, who's at a vote counting center in Milwaukee right now with 66% of the vote in. Donald Trump is in the lead there with 50.6% in Wisconsin in general. Kamala Harris with 47.8%. Donald Trump right now in the lead by almost 60,000 votes. Sarah, you have officials with you who can tell us about the outstanding vote in Wisconsin. Still about 1/3 of the state's vote is outstanding. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we just heard a big cheer go up here in Milwaukee at the central count, as they call it, because all the wards have finally reported. So they are counting these ballots as fast as they can. They do believe that they're going to be able to give some kind of idea of this count after midnight. It will not take the extra 2 or 3 hours they thought it might because of that problem with what happened with the tabulators, which, by the way, are right behind me, one of them. All 13 of them, there was an issue. A door was not locked, and so they, out of an abundance of caution, decided that they were going to rerun through the absentee ballots, 30,000 of them, but they've been able to do that, and now they're about 80,000 of 325,000 that have already been processed. All right, with me now, we have Patricia Ruiz-Cantu and Douglas Haig, Republican, Democrat. Both of them are on the Milwaukee Election Commission. First of all, how are things going, and do you think we're going to find out something soon?
We will. I think things are going really well, even though we had a little hiccup But as we united, all the workers and the parties, I think that it's extremely important that we were in the same page and that we had an agreement, and everything is going well.
What did you make of this? I know Ron Johnson came out, a Republican, and was very, upset with all of this and was sort of making hay about it. What were your thoughts on what happened with these machines?
Well, there was a human error in part of it. So when it was caught, we just simply did a rerun on the with the Brasi and the tabulators, and even probably some of the tabulators should have seen it, but it was caught by one of the observers who brought it to the executive director's attention, and it was acted upon immediately. We took care of it, and yes, we anticipated a much further delay than we are, but I think we're right on schedule where we anticipate to be earlier. And true, if you can see around and look at the poll workers at work, we both have Democrats and Republicans working side by side, and many of them have been doing this for many years, and they've become very efficient about it, and they're with their integrity from each group. So I think we're going to be getting those numbers fairly soon. I don't want to say as early as we would like, but I think it's going to be earlier than what we thought before we had the hiccup, so to speak.
Just to both of you, what do you think of this, the number of voters? Are you seeing the numbers larger than in 2020, and what are you seeing now?
I'm not seeing as large as I thought before. But most of us were going out to the polls earlier too. The polls were a steady, nice flow. What I did see is a high volume of same-day registrations. That was seen to be a much more increase at all the polling sites, and not just one geographical area, whether it be whatever demographics, but it was all over that was encompassed. And I talked to each chief inspector, and that is the area that I saw a much increase in the participation of same-day registration.
Same-day registration. We saw that also in Cedarburg today. A lot of people coming and registering and voting. Thank you both so much. We should just make very clear, you heard it here from a Republican and a Democrat who are election commissioners, that there was an agreement. This is going to be a free and fair election here in Milwaukee. People are watching every single bit of this and agreeing that things are going as smoothly as possible after that hiccup earlier today. Jay.
All right, Sarah Seidner in Milwaukee, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's take a look at Milwaukee and Wisconsin at large. Donald Trump in the lead with 66% of the vote in the state in general. Tell me about the WOW counties, if you could.
So you're right around Milwaukee, or the WOWs. Let me get to them in just a second. I just want to interesting. Number one, we've learned about Senator Johnson in recent years. He likes to put out press releases before he knows what the facts are. Sorry, it just happens to be true, especially about voting integrity. That's how it's supposed to work. A Democrat and a Republican standing side by side, Democrats and Republicans throughout the room, they're fine. They're doing what they're supposed to do. They had a human error. We're all human, and they're fixing it. Right? That's how it works. Sometimes it means you wait a little while, but you have people in the room, eyeballs, both parties, eyeballs on